Hello everyone, my name is Vlad and I am from Russia. On my channel I like to talk about Russia and the USSR, so that people who have never been to Russia or interacted with Russians have a better understanding of my country. Today I intend to answer the most common questions and debunk the most common misconceptions about Russia and Russians. I will tell you whether it's true that everyone in Russia drinks vodka, goes to the sauna or rides bears, and also whether it's true that everyone in Russia hate foreigners, love Putin, vodka, and never smile. And the first question is it true that it's always cold and snowy in Russia? No, it's not entirely true. Russia has various climatic zones, and weather conditions can vary greatly depending on the region. For example, in the north of Russia, in Siberia or the Far East, winters can indeed be very cold, with temperatures dropping below minus 30 degrees Celsius, and snow can stay on the ground for a long time. However, in other regions such as Krasnodarsky Krai and Sochi, the climate is closer to Mediterranean, and winters here are much milder. Snow is rare in these regions, and winter temperature usually stay above zero. For example, I lived in Siberia in the Republic of Khakassia for 18 years, and when I say that, it immediately creates the impression that we sleep in the snow and eat ice all year round. No. What's amazing there is that compared to, for example, Italy, where it's always warm and hot in summer, we have four distinct seasons: hot sunny summer, orange autumn, and cold winter. So how severe and cold is the winter there? In winter sometimes the temperature can reach minus 40 degrees Celsius, but it lasts for a maximum of a couple of weeks. Sounds crazy, but to compare with Moscow, for example, when the minimum temperature there is minus 25 degrees Celsius in winter, in reality, due to humidity, this cold feels more or less the same. Yeah, in Moscow, when it's minus 20, it's very cold. But for example, in Yakutia or in the north of Russia, like in Norilsk, it's definitely colder, obviously. But almost always in April, May, we already have plus 20 degrees Celsius, and in summer it can be plus 35 degrees Celsius, and summer can last until September. So in general, the weather in Russia is very diverse, except for the far north. The next question is, why do all Russians drink vodka? The stereotype that everyone in Russia drinks vodka often arises from the fame of this drink abroad, as well as its portrayal in cinema and literature. However, in real life, preferences in alcohol choices are as individual and diverse as in any other countries. For example, I'm almost 28 years old and I have never tried vodka in my life. And many friends in my circle prefer wine or some cocktail instead of vodka. But the fact that Russia is the top consumer of vodka, that's true, surpassing Ukraine, Poland, Bulgaria and Slovakia. Vodka is indeed popular in Russia because it has a long history and a multitude of traditions associated with it. The first mentions of a drink similar to vodka date back to the 9th century and are associated with the lands of modern Russia, Ukraine and Poland. In the 90s, after the collapse of the USSR, when the country had no money, there were cases when some employees were paid their wages in vodka. Another reason why vodka is so popular in Russia is because it's produced there and it's very cheap. The average price of vodka can be only a couple of years, just like the prices of red wine in Italy, when prices for foreign drinks are much higher and the Russian population is not known for high incomes. But does this mean that Russia is the heaviest drinking country in the world? No. If we look at statistics, Russia ranks 42nd in the world in terms of alcohol consumption overall, with Romania, Georgia, Czech Republic, Latvia, and Germany leading the way. In the list of the 10 countries that drink the most wine, Russia is in 6th place, and in terms of beer consumption, it's 32nd. The next question is, are all Russians rude, and serious. Indeed, Russian people may sometimes appear serious, especially when first meeting someone or in formal situations, but that does not mean that they are always like that. In reality, Russian people, like people of any other nationality, have different personalities, temperaments, and emotions. They can be cheerful, friendly, open, and warm. For example, I have many acquaintances who live in Russia, are easygoing, always optimistic, and smiley. I'm not like that. I am very reserved emotionally, so this is my normal face almost every time. But it doesn't mean that I'm in a bad mood, so I'm actually laughing inside. Most of it's related to where I'm from, Siberia. People there smile less because most of the time everything around is gray and gloomy, and the atmosphere does not encourage smiling. Plus, the majority of the population there, if a person is too cheerful, may perceive them as strange, insincere, or mentally ill. Smiling at strangers for us is strange. Smiling without a reason is strange. So, why are you smiling? Is something funny? Or are you smiling because of good weather? Really? But it's only in Russia, because when I lived in America or Europe, it's considered normal to greet a stranger and smile. So I can look sad and serious in Russia and friendly and smiling in another country. So in general, it's all because of the atmosphere. And the lack of a smile does not always indicate a bad mood or unfriendliness. In Russian culture, a smile is not always used as the main expression of joy or friendliness, and it should not be perceived as a sign of anger or aggression. But when I smile, people are sure that I'm sincere. Another reason is that in Russia some men may see themselves as protectors and bearers of strength, which implies a serious and stern image. They may believe that a smile makes them less authoritative and can be perceived as a weakness. The next question is it true that Russians don't like foreigners? As we say in Russia, Russians dislike Russians the most. Russians don't dislike foreigners, they may fear them. According to statistics, around 70% of Russians have never been abroad. Those who have never been abroad or traveled in another country may have a limited understanding of other cultures and peoples. Most people have never communicated with foreigners, never had the opportunity to meet them. Russians, if they travel abroad, often go to Turkey or Thailand, but there they rarely interact with locals. Mostly they just want to relax. Plus, few people know English or another language because if you are not from Moscow or St. Petersburg, then another language besides Russian is unlikely to be useful for you. So get to know communicating with a person from another country or understanding that they're just an ordinary people like you. Few people had this opportunity. A good example for this is the 2018 World Cup in Russia. Millions of foreigners came to us, and everyone knows how well they were treated, everyone had fun together. We are very interested in seeing and meeting a foreigner in person, learning about their life, how their culture differs, and so on. But the main reason for this fear is Russian propaganda. For the past few years, Russian propaganda has been saying only bad things about Europe and America, and therefore people may develop the idea that everyone from there is bad and evil, especially when you have never seen them or interact with them. In general, I noticed such a feature among Russians who watch television. They hate those whom they have never seen. They can hate all Americans just because the TV says bad things about the American president, thinking that all Americans are scoundrels. Or here are gays. Most Russians have never seen them and have never encountered them in life, but they hate them, because Russian propaganda portrays them in a very negative light. and many as if compared a gay person with a rapist or pedophile, and only because that's how it's presented in TV. The next question is it true that everyone in Russia loves Putin? No, it's not true that everyone in Russia loves Putin. Although Vladimir Putin allegedly received 87% of the votes in the latest presidential election in 2024, it cannot be said that this percentage of Russians support him. Regarding these elections, Vladimir Putin has been ruling Russia for almost 25 years. Firstly, the majority have resigned themselves to the fact that elections in Russia are not fair. There is plenty of video evidence showing ballot manipulation during elections. Secondly, any opposition in Russia has been eradicated, and the candidates in the 2024 elections were unknown and unpopular individuals controlled by the current government. Such individuals were put forward to create the appearance of no alternative to Vladimir Putin, and even those who opposed the war in Ukraine before the elections immediately expressed their support for it afterward. Simply put, there is no real opposition left in Russia. They have either left, are in prison, or are dead. Protests abound, and dissenters can be arrested and punished. Therefore, it's unknown what proportion of Russians actually support Vladimir Putin. In the early years of Putin's rule, there was economic growth and rising wages due to high oil prices. However, after the annexation of Crimea in 2014, the Russian ruble depreciated, inflation increased, and the standard of living gradually worsened, with incomes falling. Many older people who experienced the hardships of the 1990s after the collapse of the Soviet Union believe that the economic stability seen in the 2000s, when oil prices rose and money flowed in Russia, was all thanks to Vladimir Putin. Thus, many may believe that Putin lifted Russia from its knees 20 years ago and that he knows what he is doing now and will save Russia again. They can justify everything, including rising prices, falling wages, expensive food, and the negative effects of sanctions on Russia, as well as missile strikes in Russian cities and terrorist attacks in Moscow, even though Vladimir Putin always promised stability and security. Anyway, I have a separate video on my channel on why Russians tolerate everything and do not protest, so there you will find all answers. The next question is it true that in the center of Siberia there are only forests where nobody lives? I was surprised to hear that from my friend from Italy who genuinely believed that the center of Russia was just forest, snow and bears. In reality, the stereotype that there are only forests in the center of Siberia where nobody lives is inaccurate. Siberia is an extensive region with diverse landscapes and populated areas. There are large cities in Siberia with populations of over 1 million people, as well as towns and villages where people live. For example, there are cities like Omsk, Novosibirsk, Krasnoyarsk, and others. They have all necessary infrastructure and international airports. However, these cities, while large, lag significantly behind in terms of quality of life compared to Moscow. They are less modern, more polluted, and face problems with employment, wages, and healthcare. I think in another video I will provide more details about the actual life in Siberia, because I'm from Siberia and my family is still living in Siberia. So, for example, this is what Krasnoyarsk looks like, with a population of more than 1 million people, as well as Novosibirsk, Yakutsk, Norilsk. Russia simply is a vast country, and the distances between cities are enormous. Most people try to move from small towns to larger ones, such as Krasnoyarsk or Novosibirsk, with a population of over 1 million people. In Russia, these are considered big cities, and there are only 16 of them. People are moving from small cities to big ones because the small cities are not developing at all, and it's very difficult to live there. So I think this is a common practice worldwide. The next question is it true that Russians love the sauna or the Russian banya so much? Yes, we absolutely love the Russian sauna, and the sauna is an important and a popular tradition in Russian culture at all. But if you imagine the sauna experience in Russia as when men gather, drink vodka, heat up in a hot sauna, beat themselves with birch twigs, and then jump into the snow, then it's wrong. It's not how we do it. And doing so is incorrect and harmful. In a proper Russian sauna, the temperature reaches up to 90 degrees Celsius with sufficient humidity. Water and beneficial oils and herbs are added to the stones for aroma. The birch twigs are not used to beat a person, but to generate steam. Creating a contrast in body temperature but plunging into cold water or snow is very beneficial for the heart and blood vessels. At the end of the procedure, it's recommended to enjoy a hot herbal tea. If done correctly and without excess, after sauna session in a Russian bathhouse, you only feel lightness in your body. So when you're in Russia, be sure to try it out. The next one, is it true that bears roam the streets in Russia like dogs? No, that's not true. Bears don't roam the streets in Russia like dogs. Bears usually inhabit the wild, forests and mountains, and they avoid contact with humans. Encounters with bears in populated areas are extremely rare and usually occur due to accidental situations or as a result of their natural habit being disrupted, such as coming into the streets in search of food. However, this may only happen in villages, and even then, bears typically fear humans and try to stay away from them. And as for the famous photo of Putin on a bear, it's obviously photoshopped, creating to establish the image of a Russian hero. The next one. In Russia, do people really wear fur coats and ushanka hats? Do they play balalaikas? And do all households have Matryoshka's dolls? Not everyone in Russia wears fur coats and ushanka hats. This is a stereotype often associated with the imagery from the Soviet era. In modern Russia, people wear a variety of clothing similar to what you might find in other countries. About balalaika. While the balalaika is a traditional musical instrument in Russian culture, not all Russians play it. It's mainly played in folk orchestras, but in general playing the balalaikas is not very popular activity. Matryoshka's dolls. Those painted wooden nesting dolls are iconic symbols of Russian culture and can be popular souvenirs, but they're not found in every Russian household. Honestly, I only see Matryoshkas in souvenir shops in Moscow for tourists. I have never seen them in anyone's home. However, as a souvenir from Russia for a foreigner, they are a nice gift. And the last one for today, one of the common stereotypes about Russian cuisine among foreigners is the perception that all dishes are heavy, greasy and unappealing. I totally disagree. So, to convince yourself of this, when you are in Russia, be sure to visit a restaurant and try dishes such as borscht, голубцы, щи, and Olivier salad. By the way, from those from Europe, this salad is called Russian salad there. But as I noticed, it has a lot of mayonnaise, and the taste is significantly different. I could not eat it at all, so I hope in Russia you will try the real salad and compare. Also, obviously, Russian pancakes or Russian blini and pies with various fillings are must-tries. And as a bonus for those who, when talking about Russia, picture Moscow, Putin, wars and nuclear weapons. Do not equate Russia with Russian government. Russia is not Moscow and Russia is not Putin with his aggressive politics. Russia is incredible nature, mountains, rivers, forests, and lakes. So if you want to see the real Russia, you should spend more time exploring its nature. And I will tell you in a separate video which places you should definitely visit to get to know Russia better. Thanks for watching this video to the end. Please like to help promote it. It was Vlad from Russia, and see you later.